Report Saturday edition live here on youtube.com/The Whitfield Report. I am your host, Savage Sam Whitfield, broadcasting here live from South Florida. And I want to thank you very much for joining us. As always, you can follow the show, and you can follow me on Twitter at @SamDavid_NGC. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at @SamDavid_NGC. Gab and Minds, not that anyone goes there anymore, at Sam Whitfield, Facebook.com/The Whitfield Report, and thesamwhitfield.com, and r/Whitfield Report if you want to join our small Reddit. I think there are like now 5 people there, so yay, progress. So anyway, folks, I actually have multiple guests tonight, so it's a foursome depending on how you look at it. And
I love it when you talk dirty to me.
So as some of you guys may remember, I was on a program called Versa Media a few months ago on I can't remember the name of the station.
I can throw them for you.
Okay.
It was on a show called Real News on the line 90.7 FM on Saturdays at 7 p.m., which also uploads to the Versa Media channel. It's kind of our YouTube place for all of our recordings of Real News.
Oh, okay. So Real News is the show, and Versa Media is more like your network then.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
So, for those of you listening on the other podcast, that was Sean that you just heard, and then Phil is
Dictator Phil.
Dictator Phil. You'll see me oftentimes retweet Dictator Phil just because I find him fucking hilarious. And I want to know how you got the Twitter handle Dictator Phil, because that is so perfect.
Well, yeah. We so Sean, myself, and a couple other guys, we always had conversations of like, you know what, like on how to better society, and I was always like, you know what, if I was dictator, okay, this is what I would do, and I would do it like I'd have all these crazy conversations. So then I was like, well, you know what? I'll just call myself Dictator Phil. Why not? And we can keep the conversation going.
And then we have Alex, who is also a co-host. Alex wasn't on the Real News when I was there, but I've seen him in your guys' Discord too. So
yeah, so that time there was some technical difficulties with the radio station. We usually talk via Discord, and like I'll jack in through there, but yeah, that time I think there was like the Discord thing wasn't hooked up. Sean knows the technical details, but I wasn't able to jack in, and I don't live close to. I don't go to Penn State anymore, and I wouldn't be able to physically show up over there on like that shorter notice. So at that time, I had to kind of like sit it out, and I was in the Discord. But most every other time I'm on, and I've been a co-host since the Real News started.
Hey Alex.
Yeah.
You said you weren't able to jack in, but were you able to jack off? That's the real question.
I was just
with us today.
So you're on an uncensored podcast, and I was
Clearly.
I was about ready to ask that question. So the other question I have to ask you guys is though, have you guys done room wax? Because former comedian Owen Benjamin seems to think that they're like the greatest thing ever. So
funny guy, like not actually funny, but like like a fungus, kind of like you eat that shit and you be throwing up everywhere. But
one way to answer that question.
Yeah, I think I think one night I came into your Discord and just started ranting at like either one of you guys found one of my own centered podcasts and was wondering what was going on, and then yeah. But anyway, speaking of weird stuff that's going on, because we're living in a clown world, I just saw a tweet from Maynard James Keenan of Tool, and apparently he posted a meme of himself as Thanos snapping Taylor Swift. And apparently the SJWs are already like complaining that because she's a sexual assault survivor, and I guess he was accused of sexual assault a few years ago, like now leftist Twitter is coming after him, and it just seems like everyone is getting so fucking offended over everything these days. It's ridiculous.
I didn't know Taylor Swift was a sexual assault survivor, but I guess she's a celebrity, so that's pretty much every celebrity out there. Like, I don't know, yeah, they're just full of shit.
My question is because I guess she had something going on where one of the producers, somebody like touched her ass or something like that. My question was like, what ass? That's the real question, right? She's like 100 pounds. Like, where is it? Where is it? I'm trying to like, you forced me to watch your videos just to try to find your ass. Couldn't find it. Sorry.
Oh my god, Phil, you and I are gonna get along way too well, because that was my exact same question. And also, I mean, now the definition of sexual assault is like so vague that, like, if I were to say a pickup, line in the wrong way now, it could be considered sexual assault. Now, you guys also go to Penn State, which I know is a fairly, liberal school. So I want to ask, and I'm sorry for being blunt, but just how the fuck have you guys survived there as, conservatives on that campus?
Lots of ammo. I'm kidding. No, I don't even own a gun. But I know what you mean, though, because I think honestly it's because we found conservative friends. We found people that are just like us that don't, to give context, I grew up in a liberal high school. Everybody was liberal. All the teachers were liberal. Like, to find a conservative there was like just unheard of. And I did find like two. But coming to a college, I was like, I got to join the Trump Club. It was like the first thing I said. First thing I did. Glad I did. Funny enough, the first people I met there weren't actually my friends later on. The first guy I met is like, who I'm thinking of, Alex. He's like a Bond villain. The guy.
I've hung around your Discord long enough now that I'm pretty sure I know who you guys are talking about.
Yeah. So that was the first guy I encountered, but Alex was actually the first friend I'd made, and he's become one of my best friends I've ever made. And then I found Phil later on, Dictator Phil. Don't want to get executed by him, so I better say properly. Found him later, and more recently, and we become really close friends. But it's just a natural thing. You come to college, you find similar people. But it is very, very liberal. But there are still plenty of conservatives here, and joining conservative clubs is the best way to stay alive. And also, even if you do cause trouble, as long as you can back up what you said, they really can't do some stuff to you. That's what I've learned.
So what is there like 5 of you, or is in all seriousness, is there actually like a good number of like conservatives relative to Penn State, or is it just like pretty much you guys? And then
it's growing. I'll say that it's definitely growing, because the first year I got here was 2016 in the heat of the election. And the CRs got quite a few people at their meeting. I'd say about 50 when I went to their first meeting. And it was mostly a bunch of angry Trump supporters, because the president, who was a registered Democrat, I believe at the very time, didn't want to endorse Trump and was blocking measures to do so by doing an illegal poll over the summer. But since then, it was there was, I would say about 20 conservatives I knew, 25, 30. And that's when I was getting involved with Turning Point USA on campus. And then this year, when I became president of Turning Point USA, we packed our first meeting, which normally would have at a first meeting would have between 20 and 30 people for our club. And on a normal day, it would have maybe 20. This first meeting had 60 people. 60. It filled the room almost. And then our second meeting this week had 45 people. So a strong return rate. And it was more people in our second meeting than the first CR meeting. And one final thing I'll mention is that last year, when I was secretary of the club, we had a campus clash event, it was called, where we brought Donald Trump Jr., Charlie Kirk, and Kimberly Guilfoyle all to speak there. And we packed a room with over 700 people and had to turn away 300. So that was mostly community of the people we had to turn away. So there's like at least 700 people on this campus that are conservative.
Okay, now another important question. Which one of you guys got Kimberly Guilfoyle's phone number? So
Joe, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, but no. No. I'm pretty sure I didn't want to get beaten by the Secret Service because I'm pretty sure she's on lock by Mr. Donald Trump Jr.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm trying to.
That's right.
I'm trying to keep all my limbs here. It's very nice being of healthy, sound mind.
Yeah, I keep forgetting she's with Trump Jr. So,
like, have you ever seen her in person though? Like, she probably has more makeup on than like the Olay factory.
Oh god, there's so much makeup.
Well, most of those Fox News anchor babes are. I mean, I did meet Kennedy in person though, and she's actually pretty good looking. I was at a Yale con earlier this summer, which I've kind of have mixed emotions about that. But the one thing that was good was she was there, and someone brought up that she was like the anger version of like Lisa Ann, and I was kind of like okay, now that you've said that, I can't stop seeing that. So but yeah.
Yeah, how's your experience with Yale? I know, like, over at Penn State, we had, like, Turning Point right now is probably the only, like, real conservative organization. College Republicans are all, like, establishment cucks. And, what was it? We have a Yale chapter, but I don't know if it's
Well,
it's not, it's kind of active right now, but it's just become like an activism wing. It's pretty much dead.
Well, technically, I'm still with them for now, although after this, if any of them are listening, I might not be, but but at this point I don't really care, so I'm just gonna say when I went to that conference, I was just surrounded by a bunch of like really hardcore ANCAPs who basically wanted to go from what we have, which is kind of like semi big government, to like absolutely no government whatsoever. And I was just kind of like, okay guys, that's not practical. And then anytime I like brought up the fact that we that we can't just like get rid of the entire government, and that maybe, and I don't think privatizing the police force is a good idea, I was like, oh, they were like, well you're a statist, so I'm like they keep using the word statist the way that like SJWs use the word Nazi, to describe. So, and like that wasn't everyone there, but I think there are like a lot of kind of fringe libertarians, and I don't know. Right now I'm just kind of happy doing this radio program. So, which I've been doing for like 12 years now total. So,
well, like ours, to be honest, like there's a couple people over there, but I think the biggest problem that we have over here is like the person in charge. In my opinion, he probably shouldn't be in charge. I'll just leave it at that due to ongoing situations.
The only thing I can say is that I had very limited interactions with Yao, but my girlfriend was the vice president of Yao at this campus, and she did not like her time there. And when she went to YaoCon in Philly recently, it's now going to be her last one because she said it just has a culty vibe. It's a bunch of weird guys. It was not what it used to be. And even before, it was kind of weird too. She's had some unpleasant experiences there, but I've only heard positive things from Turning Point, to be honest. I'm not just saying that as somebody that works for them and is their chapter president. Like, it honestly, of all the conservative clubs on campus, it's by far the best.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I think that largely depends too on like who's running your chapter too. My problem is where I go to school. I'm also, I mean, I go to like a real small branch of the University of South Florida, here where I'm at. So I'm at like a commuter college, and commuter colleges are tough because unlike, when you have dorms at like university, I mean, people come and go. Most of them, like work, they have jobs off campus. So trying to get like a club, together can be difficult. And, that's where Yale has kind of dropped the ball a bit, even though I've asked them for help somewhat on that. So, but before my phone starts blowing up with text messages from Yale, you've had some pretty notable guests actually on Real News lately. So I mean, I don't want to name any of them for you, but I mean, I was on with a couple notable guests that were on after me. So I guess who have been some of your favorite guests that you've had on?
Yeah, I mean, when you were on, we had Styx Hexenhammer on, which was huge. I think Dictator Phil was the one that got in contact with him, got that rolling, and it was a shot in the dark. It felt like at first, but it rolled through, and that was a big deal. But the biggest deal was a few weeks later, or was it the week after? I forget. We saw this article on Milo's website exposing a bunch of frauds, basically in the right wing movement, where these two video producers, one of them's name was Kaylin Robertson, who produced a lot of videos for Tommy Robinson, Lauren Southern, was totally like a fraud and was just an opportunist and was sabotaging these people. And Milo wrote an amazing piece of journalism on them. And I started reaching out initially to one of Milo's friends. Oh, God, his name is slipping my mind. But he does a bunch of things with him every now and then. And I thought, well, maybe we can get him because he could talk about it. And he just said, oh, you have to email Milo. And I emailed Milo and no response back. But then I saw in the Telegram, Milo's Telegram channel, a message saying, DM me at Milo Inc. or whatever it was. And I thought, I might do. I should probably try that. Maybe I'll do it in the morning. But somebody here beat me to it. Mr. Dictator Phil already slid into his DMs, which was, I was, shocked to find that the way I word that. I was shocked to find that Milo quickly responded to him. I was like just shocked, and I was pleasantly surprised. And then since then he came on our show, and it was amazing. I one of my just favorite moments here. It was unbelievably cool to talk to him.
I'm gonna have to try messaging him on Telegram myself because I've been trying to get him on the show for a couple of years now, and I have some questions that I want to ask about him specifically, and regarding some other individuals in the conservative movement. So, I guess like in terms of kind of the culture war, I guess, where do you see the culture war going? Because it doesn't seem to be getting any better. It doesn't seem to be getting any worse. It just seems to kind of be getting weirder, in my view.
I think right now I think there's been negative events happening. Like you see it all the time. Like more conservatives are being taken off of Facebook or getting taken off of payment platforms. Like look at 8chan. They just got shut down. And say what you will about 8chan, but it was one of the few like real free places to discuss stuff on the internet as we know it, like on the clear net. Like you can still access it now on like a I think Tor. There's an Onion service for it, but yeah, like when that happened, I think a lot of people were just like, oh well, they had all these bad people posting on there, but honestly, that was probably that was like the fall of Saigon almost. That sort of just like the death knell of like online like conservative, well maybe not the death knell, but like a turning point almost of bad shit that's going to happen. I just don't see it getting any better until we have some legislative action from like Trump or like his administration or something. But I think that might happen. I saw that Facebook got like a $5 billion fine the other day for privacy violations, and there's been talks about like doing something to fine them for like hurting conservatives, but right now it's just talks, and unless they really like if we don't get Trump in 2020, I don't think anything's going to happen, but if we do get him in, I think there's a high likelihood that he will take some form of executive action to stop Facebook, like maybe remove safe harbor for leftist organizations that discriminate against conservatives. So that would kill YouTube and Facebook if they don't comply to the new laws.
Well, I know that the PragerU lawsuit is going on regarding like redefining Section 230, and I mean I know that various people have varying opinions on Dennis Prager and PragerU. Some people do like them, some people don't, but I think if regardless of whether or not you like them, and I like some of their stuff, and other vids I don't really care for. But overall, I think, if we can get like Section 230 more clearly defined, where like these social media platforms actually have to like make a choice, on like whether or not they want to be editors or whether or not they want to be platforms. It needs to be one or the other. So, and the other thing that I've said is, I think if anything, they need to I think they need to break up the big. I think Trump's role, he needs to break up the big social media companies like Roosevelt did with like Big Still and Big Oil and kind of the monopoly. You know,
Well, I think what's happened with the culture in relation to this, because Alex is bringing up a really important point, is the fact that, and through 2014, 15, 16, when Gamergate was happening, when Milo was rising to stardom, when all these people were, on stage and kicking ass, that was when all these people were on social media outlets. That's when the conservative new right counterculture was as strong as ever, and it had its fire and its spice. But once Trump got into office, which was the main goal of it, really, that's when all these tech companies said, look, we can't let this happen again. We played a role in it. We let it happen. We can't let it happen again. And there's documents showing them all saying this. And that's when they started the bans. They banned Milo from Twitter. They banned Alex Jones from like the entire internet practically. They banned Gavin McInnes from Twitter. They banned Roger Stone from Twitter. All of the most influential and cool new conservative voices were just getting taken off from all the influential platforms. So now the culture is kind of like, those guys are there, but you have to kind of really hunt to find them. And now they can't even go on universities. Like Milo, he used to be on every university, raising hell everywhere he went. And now he is totally banned from like continents like Australia. It's getting, they've shut down the influence of our cultural voice, and you're seeing the result, which is that the other side, even though they're promoting degenerate culture and terrible policies, they're not exactly winning, but they're kind of the louder voice right now because the other voice has been shut down.
Well, what's interesting to me is like now we're even at a time where like where Dave Chappelle is you know considered controversial. And, like that's the other thing is like now we're at a point where like comedians and like people who are even like non-political are getting kind of slaughtered just for saying like common sense stuff. Like I would consider myself like pretty conservative. I'm not like I don't think I'm like really far out there. And I think like personally on social media, I think if you're gay and you want to if you want to be like in a gay relationship, that that's fine. If you want to smoke like marijuana, that's fine too. But but it seems to be also if you hold like any views that are even like remotely center right, you more or less get shamed by the left now. So
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think what you mentioned with Dave Chappelle, that could be the comedians could be our saving grace for this. Like how the gamers helped the conservative movement in general and GamerGate. I think the comedians, if they mobilize and they go and start fighting back, because that's something that like everyone pays attention to comedians. Because like people like comedy, and if they can't like make funny jokes anymore, if all you have to go and watch is like Amy Schumer and the other shit comedians like ran about like abortions and whatnot. And then yeah, I feel that people will start to take notice. Like they are highly visible, and I think they honestly that's probably our best bet right now is like start forming alliances with comedians.
Mm.
well, we need Louis C.K. back is what we really need. Because it will just trigger the left and especially the feminists who just demonized him. And that's the other thing. I was talking with a guest, on the last episode. We there's no room for forgiveness anymore. No one can make mistakes in the public eye, anymore. Everyone has to be 100% perfect. And it's according to the left, and it's insane. They're more puritanical than the religious right ever was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
Yeah. Oh, do you want to say something first, Alex?
yeah, it's a double standard too, because like the left, if there's like a child rapist or something, they're like, oh, well, he's a changed man. Let's go, and he can be a kindergarten teacher. He can go to the library and dress in drag and have little students on his lap, like little kids, little kindergartners and stuff. Oh yeah, that's fine. But if you made like a racist joke in like 2010, you need to be banned. You need to be like thrown into an asylum. You need to be given like hate speech charges. You need to be forever unemployed. That's their logic, and it doesn't make any sense. Like if like O.J. Simpson, I bet they probably love him over on the left, and he's a murderer, and he also what you call it, robbed someone. They'd forgive him, but if someone's like what was it that Parkland, the other guy from Parkland, was it Kyle
Kashad.
Kashad? Yeah, he said something stupid. I mean, he's a kid. Like what he said was wrong, but still, I don't think the way that they like treat him, they kicked him out of Harvard and all this other stuff. I don't think that was the appropriate response to that.
well, I mean, I think in regards to the whole in regards to the whole Parkland thing. I mean, that thing has kind of been overblown too. But I don't think any of those kids really should have been made into political voices, because that's essentially what they've all become. Is it's become like Parkland's become a big part of the political debate on guns, whether you like it or not. So,
Well, the thing I noticed when David Hall came to Penn State is that he wasn't there to push gun control. He was there to get young people to vote Democrat. Every single thing
Right.
he talked about was in relation to getting the vote out. You need to vote. You need to do this. You need to. It wasn't about we need this gun control. No, that wasn't the bigger picture there. And he made it almost pretty damn clear that it was about we need people to register to vote Democrat now, because the left if there's one thing they're smart about is they know you got to go after the youth, because the youth are going to be the future voting bloc, and they know that the young mind is very easily, turned liberal, I guess you could say. People are born pretty liberal, and then as they get older, they become conservatives. Like, all right, let's bank on them now while we can. But conservatives need to start learning that too, that we need to attract younger people to our movement. And I always mention Milo. I mean, I mention him a lot, but this is where he's really good at that, because he's a younger voice and he gets that people like the sort of edgy memes, the internet culture and the gamers. He gets that. But guys like Ben Shapiro or some of the older conservatives don't get that. Like Glenn Beck, they really don't get that. And that's why Milo's popular among the youth, and these guys, kind of are or really aren't in many ways. And back to the Chappelle thing I want to mention, because we were talking about this on the show, that got, destroyed by the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, got like a rotten score by critics, but an overwhelmingly positive by fans. It shows such a disconnect. And the fact that Chappelle is saying stuff that's, a little bit controversial in my view, but it's like hugely controversial in the eyes of some of these progressives, shows that we're getting worse in some ways. And in my opinion, he is the most important comedian alive right now, even though he's a Democrat basically, and he doesn't like Trump and is pretty pro-gun control and maybe even pro-abortion or pro-choice. He's still fucking funny, and the left doesn't like that.
Exactly. I mean, I don't really care. Look, when it comes to like celebrities and whatnot, most of them are on the left, and that's just kind of a granted. So really, that has never really bothered me, too much. But that's kind of what I'm saying. It's gotten to the point where, like, even now, if you're not left enough for these people, you get crucified. And I mean, that's something that,
Well, yeah, because he, for example, made jokes about transgender people, and that's a no-go zone. You can't do that. And once he did that, and his jokes were funny, they just threw him to the side and said, "You're not progressive enough for us."
Yeah, well, I guess Owen Benjamin is now claiming that Dave Chappelle stole that LGBT joke from him.
I've heard that, yeah.
So, yeah, as much as I dislike the left, we've gotten a lot of cringy folks on the right, like Owen and Richard Spencer, and
oh god, yeah. See, Owen used to be
right.
What?
I don't even think Richard Spencer's on the right. Like if you've seen him, like he's dating some like Satanist like liberal chick or something. Like he's a fraud that was manufactured by the left and attributed to the right. Like they basically just wanted to make the term alt-right poisonous. So, Richard Spencer was probably some, crazy guy from 15 years ago, put something on a website that no one read, and then now he's getting interviews by like everybody.
CNN.
But like actual conservatives, like, important ones like Milo and stuff, they don't get any interviews because they're actually like good. Like Richard Spencer is controlled opposition. That's all he is.
Yeah, I'm glad that someone else agrees. Yeah, I mean, when I saw that the Atlantic was following around and doing like profiles on him, I'm like, this is insane. And then I read some of them, and they're like, he's wearing like a $12,000 blazer, and he's got like a really nice haircut, and I'm like, my God, you guys are supposedly criticizing him, and yet you're treating him like he's a rock star, or something. Like, you're waxing poetic. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely, controlled opposition. And then Owen, well, you guys somewhat know my story with Owen. I don't even know where to begin with that train wreck. So,
well, the thing with Richard Spencer is, the left, I think, is always looking for a new boogeyman to smear the right. That term alt-right came up at first And many Trump supporters adopted because they didn't know its origins, and they thought, oh, that's what we are, because we're not like the traditional establishment, right? We're an alternative to that. Little did they know, and then they did eventually figure out it was created by Richard. It was coined by Richard Spencer, and it was, basically an umbrella term for a movement that believed in establishing a white ethno state in America, which no Trump supporter believes in, except alt-right people that would support Trump. But your average Trump supporter doesn't believe that, nor is your average American. And these Richard Spencer people, these Nazis, these white supremacists, you can barely fill a living room with them. There's so few out there. On Twitter, Richard Spencer has 80,000. He has barely 77,000 followers. And they're mostly people that are probably just interested in what he says in terms of maybe a media perspective or something. They're not actually people that believe in what he says. Whereas people like Paul Joseph Watson have like hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. Richard Spencer's a nobody. The media just made him a somebody because they wanted to smear the right with some boogeyman that everybody hates. I mean, I barely agree with Spencer, I think, on anything. There might be like two things, like, oh, we both want less immigration. But then he takes the extra shot and goes, yeah, but I don't want white people. And I'm like, no, obviously I disagree with that. And, I hate how we even know his name. We shouldn't.
Right. Yeah. It's we. Yeah. It's the whole alt-right thing, especially once like Charlottesville happened. Right. That's the thing that everyone wants to go back to. Well, what about Charlottesville? That was an example of right-wing extremism. And like, granted, Charlottesville should have never happened. Like, I remember saying on my show, like, if you're a conservative, do not go to Charlottesville because it's filled with like actual white nationalists, and they're all crazy people, and you will likely get tied up with wrong people. But even so, like, I feel like if the national media hadn't been there watching, everything, and kind of like, I'm not saying that they planned for something to happen, but it was almost like they were looking for something to happen because, had it been like any other place and had the media not been there, it would have been like uneventful. The white nationalists would have done like their stupid things and then taken their, pea-stained bed sheets home, or whatever. So.
I feel like Charlottesville was kind of like it got taken. Like, they had one incident. Like, there's two sides over there. Like, people just look at the quote unquote alt, like the right wing side, and there was people involved in the right wing side who were not alt right, but I don't even know if the majority of them are alt right, but the small minority. Well, I didn't go there, so I don't know, but a certain portion of that made everyone labeled who visited there on the right side, on the right wing side, as alt-right because of one person's actions. And I mean that, and if you actually look at the stuff involved with that too, like, there was Antifa carrying around like baseball bats and like rifles and stuff, looking for a fight, smashing cars, throwing over trash cans. And, say what you will about the right wing side, like they, their optics were terrible, but they actually got a permit to protest over there. They followed all the, I know you don't need a permit you constitutionally really shouldn't need a permit to protest in the United States, but they still, they try to do things by the books. But the media, which is controlled by the left, wanted to go and spin this, and they successfully did it because now, you even bring it up. You say that, both sides, had some faults involved. That makes you a white nationalist now. If you believe that it wasn't just solely one-sided evil thing. Like Antifa, they'll go into cities all the time, like during the Trump inauguration. They'll go and like break stuff, riot, loot, hurt people. Nobody talks about that. But, as soon as someone confronts them, they all get labeled as alt-right evil people. And sure, there are some alt-right evil people there, but, I don't think every single one of them was.
It's weird when it's weird, like during the holidays, like after the election. I mean, I had some relatives who were who granted their left, and they just became so unhinged, after Trump won, that like I went back to Colorado, and I had cousins and whatnot who were like, who were like messaging me on Twitter and like calling me a Nazi and being like, how could you, vote for Trump? And it's like, well, you guys knew I was conservative, so like, why were you guys surprised I voted for Trump in the first place? You guys knew that this was going to happen. So,
well, you should have. If you were conservative, you should have voted for Hillary. I heard she's more conservative than Trump.
Yeah. It's one of the things I learned after 2016, and it sounds harsh and mean, and it shouldn't be the case, and it wasn't the case with me till 2016, but conservatives now can't date Democrats. They can't. I mean, I remember before 2016, I was like, oh, I could date anyone. We could disagree on politics, but still get along. That's how my parents are. No, not anymore. These people are insane. I've literally been turned down on dates because I supported Trump. I've never, ever done that to anyone over.
I have to be honest, though. It is a great breakup. It is a great way to break up with a chick. If you don't like a chick, best way to break up with a chick. Like if you're going out and the chick's into you, and you're like, I'm not really into her. I'm not really into her.
Bring up Trump.
Nothing will say. Yeah, nothing you could say. Oh, I was in jail. I was in the joint for a couple of years. You'd be like, well, we could work around that. Whatever. Or like I could be like, look, I have a really bad credit score, and my debt's through the fucking roof. You'd be like, no, well, we can work around that. You could say, look, I voted for Trump. You're a monster. You're a monster, and I hate you.
Well, that's partially why this program proudly endorses the Babes for Trump movement too. So
out there that support Trump, like there's a lot of people that just don't realize, like a lot of people, like outside the cities, a lot of people support Trump. Like all that quote unquote like flyover territory, that's all Trump land for the most part. Like people just forget, like, not everyone's a coastal elite. Not everyone lives in New York City or San Francisco. Some people love Trump. They love guns. They live on farms. They work in oil fields. They're truck drivers. You don't see it, might not see them every day in New York City, but you know what? They're there and they're voting.
Yeah, that's a good point, because one thing I've learned from not only just like traveling America, but just like talking to people, is when you are in your city, you're kind of in a bubble. And that's what the media was like when they thought there can't be these Trump supporters existing out where like he's got to be at the bottom of the polls. Yeah, cities are extremely liberal and all they're talking to are liberals then. But once you move out to the suburbs, then it's kind of 50-50. That's where I grew up. You'll have some conservatives, some liberals. The conservatives tend to be very quiet, though, mind you. But once you go out into the rural areas, it's all conservative, almost all.
Right.
And, that's where the disconnect comes, because you're just not interacting with these people. And I remember in my high school, some people, like when I'd come out of the closet as a Trump supporter, they'd be like, oh my God. They like couldn't believe I just existed. There anybody that supported this guy. I remember one guy in my class was like, how can you support a guy that wants to send blacks back to Africa? I was like, what?
You never said that shit.
What? I was like, what did Trump support the blacks? He's not Richard Spencer.
Someone brought that up to me actually, and I was like, oh, you mean Joe Biden?
Yeah, he wants to put y'all back in chains.
He wants to put y'all back in chains. Here, let me sniff your hair for a little bit.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. That's what I quickly learned. Like, I'm just like, I'm not dating a liberal. I'm sorry. I never said that before, but I just can't. I even see some fighting between like couples that are, one's one political orientation, one's the other. And I'm just like, we can't coexist apparently. Like, unless we're just friends, then we can, but in a relationship, no. So yes, Sean's dating advice tonight is date somebody within your political orientation.
Yes, I mean, sadly, that's the way things are having to go now, which is sad.
Yeah,
So.
it is sad. I want to make sure it's clear. Like, I don't want it to be this way at all. It is sad, but you're just gonna get into a fight, and they're gonna say, "Fuck you, vote for Trump, you fucking fascist, you fucking Nazi," and then you're out the door, and it's sad. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way.
And guess there's one particular political party responsible for it, and hint, it's not the Republican Party, it's the Democrats. I've never seen support.
Is someone playing was someone playing the weather report, or did someone trigger?
Was that Phil?
What are you talking about? Here. No. You know what? I got a question for you. So, I went out with a chick, and
Was she hot?
Yeah, she was. So I fucking lied to her. You know, I was like, "Oh yeah, Trump's an evil guy. Oh my God, it's just absolutely." I can't. Well, how did we even put him in office, right? So yeah, so you know, we got along, and then so you know, I bowled her, and then the next morning I'm like, yeah, I'm not spending another night with this chick. So I play a Trump rally on my freaking big screen. So she's getting dressed, she's getting all her shit put up, and on the way out, she sees this fucking Trump rally. And I was like, and it was like, and she was like, oh my God, it's so disgusting. It's like, oh no, this is the best part. The best part's coming up right here. And then she fucking walked out and slammed the door. It's so beautiful. I'm telling you, you got to use it. Honestly, if you want to get laid, use it to your advantage. Okay, I'm telling you, use it to your advantage. There are stupid people out there that will just do your bidding as long as you say whatever the hell they want you to hear. And then if you want them not to be a part of your world, you just say, I voted for Trump.
You know, you
make America great again. Woohoo!
I like taken a MAGA hat and like slipped it in her drawer or like slipped it somewhere so that she, like, when she wakes up at 5, she like screams like she saw like a spider. It's like, oh my God! And then that's where you like come out with it.
Let me tell you something about Sean. All right, Sean is one of those guys. He doesn't care what you think of. He will fucking wear a MAGA hat in school. Like he will. He don't care. He doesn't care.
So did I.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. So when I was with Turning Point, we learned that the Democrats were having a gun town hall, like a gun safety town hall, right? And so we decided, hell, let's crash that shit, right? So we all get together, right? And we're going to this thing, and I noticed that Sean is wearing this bright red fucking "Make America Great Again" hat, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm afraid of what kind of looks you'll get, but at the same time, I want to fucking see it too.
So I have an equally good story. So awesome. I think I've told you guys this, but if I haven't, I'm in a wheelchair. So that makes things even more interesting because, like, for some reason, just like black people, the left automatically assumes that all cripples are going to vote Democrat. So when I showed up on campus wearing my MAG hat throughout the election, like, security didn't really know what the hell to do because technically you're not supposed to wear any, like, you know, shirts with, like, you know, political slogans or, you know, any of that, which is bullshit because like a whole bunch of the people were wearing Hillary t-shirts and they didn't bat an eye. But I wore, my MAGA hat on campus, and like I and they were like, and security was like, "Sir, you're not supposed to wear that." What are you gonna do? Restrain me and like remove it from my head and assault a cripple? And they're like,
Like, you should be like, what are you, the fucking clothing police, you fucking fascist?
You should have got a Trump-themed wheelchair and just started bringing that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to do shit because they'd be like, "Oh, you can't bring that wheelchair."
You should have big Trump buttons that are like rotating as you're pushing the fucking wheelchair.
Yeah, it's on the wheels.
Trump should make a wheelchair. That like a fucking like red. It'd be like red, like the MAGA hat, like gold rims or something. And then there'd be like a button on there that would like say "Make America Great Again" when you click on it. That would be-
I'm just waiting for them to come out with like actual Iron Man armor, so I can just like go as Iron Man. But instead of like having it be like red and gold, I'll just have it be like red, white, and blue with like a MAGA hat on.
No, actually, that remind me. We have two stories. I'm gonna have Alex tell one of them, but I'll tell mine. I was in 2016 campaigning for Trump, and I had probably the most like frightening and telling incidents of my life, because I was campaigning. We went and I was like in the campaign office, and my guys were kind of like, "Come on, Sean, come out and campaign." I was like, "Nah, I mean, I got homework to do. I mean, maybe next week." And they're like, "Nah, Sean, come on. It's like we're getting near the end here." I'm like, "All right, okay, I'll go out. I'll do it." And I went out, and we went to this neighborhood that I don't know if we hadn't been there before. We didn't scope it out well, but we went in there. I started, hand some stuff out because we go door knocking. We go to each door, hand some flyers, remind them to vote Republican this year. I didn't have my hat on, didn't have any Trump gear on. I was just holding pamphlets that were mostly, I think, Trump. I think they were all Trump ones and some down ballot candidates. And I noticed, like, hey, there doesn't seem to be any Trump supporters here. And I get to this one house. I'm walking up the driveway, and I see this guy cutting some wood. And I see to the left of him a Prius. I'm like, oh, shit. This is probably not going to be a conservative. Doesn't seem like the type. Even though he's cutting wood, maybe he's more of a manly liberal. I don't know. Maybe it could be. And I go up to him, and I'm not even like 20 feet away from him. He sees me, he puts all his stuff down, like, and just bolts toward me, like, quickly. And he's like, that better not be any Trump stuff right there. I was like, I'm just like trying to figure out what to say to not offend him or trigger him. I'm just like, "I'm sorry, it is, man." And I was like, and he just kind of looked at me and he goes, "Well, I ought to get my gun and I ought to fucking shoot you, you fucking asshole." And I was just like, oh God, I was like speechless and scared. And I was just like, "Have a nice day." I just walk out there so quickly. And then my friend, who was campaigning on the other side of the street, kind of overheard this, and he started walking over. And then the guy started going after him. He was like, "Hey, you packing? You packing?" And my friend couldn't understand what he was saying. He's like, "What?" And he's like, "You packing?" And then he understood he meant, "Oh, you packing heat? You have a gun?" And he's like, "No." And so I think my friend called the cops and told him about him. But the guy was fucking insane. He was threatening to shoot me, all because I had a few pieces of paper that said Trump on it. So it was absolutely terrifying. And it told me a lot about how these lefties can be the crazier ones, and they can be the more violent ones than the right people. The right people just be like, "Eh, whatever, fuck Hillary," or "Oh, Hillary for prison," or "Lock her up." Like, they'll say something like that, but they won't say, "Oh, I'm going to fucking shoot you." But another funny story, I think, Alex, you should tell this one. When we went to a Next Gen meeting, and explain who Next Gen is, too, in case people don't know.
Yeah, so Next Gen, it's like this really liberal, like really progressive organization. They have a couple different parts of it, but they had a couple different ones. But we went to the Next Gen Climate Change. They were like some lefty action group, and we went over there. We saw these flyers on the wall, and it was like "Stop Trump Meeting," so and so Willard Building. We went in there. We must have had like 7 people show up. and they only had 2 people show up otherwise, and one of them being a reporter. And there was really only one person who showed up to this meeting at Penn State, which is a pretty liberal campus. And we just go there, we sit down, and we take out our MAGA hats and just put it on over there, and they just they move all the stuff because they had like free stuff lined up on the desk. And they just took it off of our stuff, like, oh, you can't take that; it's not for you. And they're going to order pizza, and they canceled the meeting. We got one guy to go in over there, and he was like, we told him not to go and put any MAGA stuff on, like sort of a spy. And he was the only one who actually, like, I think it was him and the other person. They went to this meeting, and they just like started bitching about us, and like he got to keep his stuff. But man, that next gen, they were so low energy over there. Like they literally only had one person show up to their meeting other than
and they tried to move to the other room. That's what they did when they picked it up.
Yeah, they were like, oh, we don't want those Trump supporters there. And then, like, what was it? They had another meeting. I believe it was Next Gen, and they booked it, and it was like supposed to be for Planned Parenthood, and they lied on the. I think Sean, you remember that one, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was I think it was Next Gen, and they try. I forgot about this. This happened last year. We were trying to walk in and just see what they were going to say. That was actually legitimately and honestly, our intent was just to listen to them and see what they were going to say. I didn't have any gear on. I was just your typical little Sean with his shaggy hair and nothing else. And they saw one of our friends had a pin from Turning Point that just said "Live Free." I know, terrible thing to say. And they tried to stop us from literally entering the room. They said, "No, you can't come in here." And we eventually did get in. And then the one guy said to my one friend at the end of it, he said, well, if I wasn't at work, I'd beat the shit. And then his other guy started cutting him off. But he was basically going to say, I was going to beat the shit out of you. So threatening violence again. And these people are insane.
And they didn't even they didn't properly register the room. It was like what's a Planned Parenthood or something?
Yeah, they had it registered as Planned Parenthood, not as Next Gen. They lied. And a third story I'll mention that's probably one of the more insane ones was the day after the election. Like I was full on the Trump gear, the Trump shirt on and the Make America Great Again hat. I was having a fabulous day. It was
awesome. Yeah.
It was just one of the best days ever. And then I'm walking in the hub here, which is our like student center, and there's this lady there handing out flyers, and she goes, "You, sir, in the Trump hat." And I was like, okay. And I go up to her and she's like, "Can you please take that off?" And I'm like, why? This is the greatest day of my life. I'm not going to take it off. So I was thinking. And she says, well, I feel really unsafe. And so I look at her letter, and the first line is, "Dear white male." And I was like, oh, fuck. She's one of those. And I have a picture of the letter where she was going on about privilege and all this shit. And she basically, her argument for why I should take my MAGA hat off was because she felt threatened for her personal safety as a woman because Trump bragged about groping and I think she even said sexually assaulting women in his Grab by the Pussy tapes. And I tried to explain to her that was just a guy talking shit about how when you're a star, women will jump on you. And he wasn't talking about, when a guy jumps on women and starts grabbing them. That's not what he was talking about. She went way over her head and she didn't believe me at all. But she thought that because of that, he was enabling people to go out and start raping women or groping women. And so she felt threatened by that. And she thought, well, you guys take that out because I feel unsafe. It was so stupid. It was one of the just craziest things ever.
So I had a similar experience, like not quite the same, not quite the same thing, but like at my previous school where I was before I transferred to USF, I like a few weeks after the election, I was on campus, and I noticed that there was like this feminist chick talking at like just like she had a poster or something about like protect like women's safety rights or something. So I'm like, I go up to her and I start talking, and I'm like, so are you pro gun then? And she's like, well, no, because guns kill people, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you want for? How do you want to keep women safe? And she's like, well, we need to stop rape culture, and
Oh boy.
I'm like, okay, well, that like that's a bit of a myth, right? And I didn't have my hat on, but she's like, wait, aren't you that MAGA kid? I'm like, yep, I probably am. So she
Welcome back
starts
to One Real News here.
going back and being like, well, you know, you're only voting for him because you have white privilege and you're a male.
Oh.
And I'm like, lady, look at me. Okay, I'm in a fucking wheelchair. Does it look like I have fucking privilege? And she's like, well, your white privilege and your male privilege offsets your disabled.
Oh.
And
well, you're still better off than if a black person was in a wheelchair.
That was actually what she said. She said,
Oh fuck.
that was actually what she said. She said too, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still lower on the totem pole than an able-bodied black person, then, according to your logic. So,
Oh my god.
I mean,
Well,
it's
actually, you were in the Social 19 class, right, at Penn State, I think Phil said.
No. So, funny story about that. So I should explain for the audience that my friend Jeff, who is liberal, Jeff was actually on the program like a year ago, and we had a good conversation, but the audience was kind of mixed on him, to say the least. But anyway, I knew Jeff because Jeff at one point was more conservative. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but he and I used to be part of a podcast network, and but we kept in touch afterwards. So he like started inviting me into the Social 119 streams, and he actually told me to follow. He told me to follow Dictator Phil on Twitter. So again, this thing is all Phil's fault. So.
It always is Phil's fault.
What can I say? I like causing trouble.
But yeah. So I know you guys because of Jeff. So thanks, Jeff. Very cool. So
the thing is, I'm actually taking that class right now, and I actually got called up once to find social justice warrior, but after that, though, yeah, I know. It was weird. Yeah, he's like, first he said, can any conservative come up here? And literally only 2 people raised their hands. I found the third conservative in that class because he was getting pissed off the other day because in the last class I was in, Sam was doing a thing on white privilege. And he had these people up there, and he picked an interesting group. I know what he was doing because he would pick a poor black person and a rich black person, a poor white person, a rich white person, and he also picked like 2 people that weren't sure about privilege or didn't know it existed.
Wait, there are poor people that go to Penn State.
Well, yeah, I know that was the thing when he asked. I thought was so silly. I'm like, Sam, we're all going to a $35,000 a year university for in-state only. And you're trying to find a poor person? But he did find some people that didn't have a house or, for their lifetime. So, I mean, I don't know, man. But the thing that was irritating was they kept talking about privilege in terms of wealth. And I kept putting my hand up. And I was hoping I'd get called on something because guess who makes the most fucking money in America? Asians. By far, they make 10 times more than whites, according to Pew. They make 10 times more than Hispanics, according to Pew. And guess who makes more in all those groups, minus Asians? Blacks. So I was like, oh my God, where's the privilege? If we're going to talk about privilege, let's talk about Asians. And they kept talking about privilege as if their whites have an advantage. If whites have this, have that. Whereas other races don't. And I wanted to ask them so badly, and if I get the chance, I will. I'm like, okay, so if you think whites have an advantage, then does that mean? Well, I'd first say you think whites have an advantage. They'd say yes, and I'd say, well, okay, then you believe that's the case. So you're saying there's something inherent about whiteness that gives you something superior to everyone, let's say. And they go, yeah. And I'd be like, well, okay, then if you believe in white privilege, you believe in white supremacy. And their minds,
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
yeah, I got that. I'm gonna give credits due. I got that from Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, and it's a good one. I don't know if he worded it that way, but that's basically what he says. That if you believe in privilege, you believe in white privilege, you believe in white supremacy. And man, that conversation was annoying. I know Phil, you were listening to it a bit, but these people don't. They're talking as if the privileges that do exist, which are nationality, class/wealth.
Yeah.
And genetics, as in, you're lucky to be born in an able body, or you're lucky to be born with good looks, you're lucky to be handsome. Those are legitimate privileges.
Right.
Your race is not in America.
No. I liked how well, I wouldn't say I liked, but so the professor was in the beginning of the class, or close to the beginning of the class, he was talking about how, we should learn to understand the complexities of each situation. We should understand. I'm like, all right, that's a very good point, right? We should understand the complexities of every situation and every problem so we can have a more fruitful conversation. You got me there, right? And then what does this dude do? He picks 3 minorities to talk to minority students, talk to 3 white kids about how they're privileged. I'm like, you just what the hell? You're sending mixed messages. What the hell are you doing? You're telling me that I should understand the complexities, and then you're going to go, there's really no such thing as white privilege. It's like there's financial privilege. Like Absolutely. If I'm born with money, I'm going to get to go to the good schools. I'm going to get to have all the nice things and put myself in a better situation that somebody else doesn't have. But that doesn't mean that my skin color doesn't determine that. Like all of a sudden I'm born white and I'm born and I'm now surrounded with pots of fucking gold. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, here's the thing too. He did one thing that I'll give him credit for, but he didn't dive deeper into it, which he should have. Which is one of the, I think it was one of the black ladies said that, white people can get certain scholarships and things that other people can't. And Sam goes, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I know. He's like, well, wait a second. Is there any white grant or white, a scholarship out there? No, there isn't. But there are ones for gays and Hispanics and blacks. What he should have said and pushed on was, isn't that a form of racial privilege? Doesn't that mean that minorities have a privilege? He didn't go
There's no way. There's no way in hell he was going to say that shit, though. No
he should have.
Because that would have wrecked his whole fucking narrative.
Yeah. Well, he believes in white privilege. He does. He said it in the first class.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, dude.
I will say that Gavin McInnes's argument against, white privilege and racism in general is pretty, spot on.
Yeah, I love Gavin.
His whole take on it is imagine if you're in a bar and you meet a guy who is cheering for the same team or whatever that you are. You're gonna hit it off with that guy based on the interests that you guys, share. And if he happens to be, shorter or taller, or, if you happen to be white and he happens to be black, doesn't matter. If you guys have a common interest or something else in common, you guys are gonna, bond off of that as opposed to, what leftist fantasy land likes to think. So,
yeah, and he also brings up the thing with employers where he says oh, let's see, you're going to make me a shit ton of money. You're really smart. You're really nice. You have all this experience. oh, but you're black. Sorry, it's where we draw the line. Nobody does that. It's such a silly thing. And one thing that you actually made me think about, I was thinking about this the other day, which is very interesting, tells you a lot about both sides. Gavin McInnes, he's a race mixer, or is he already a race trader? So
yeah.
he obviously is not racist at all. Candace Owens, race mixer. Milo Yiannopoulos, guess you'd say it's a race mixer. Yeah, but is it me, or am I seeing more race mixing on the right than the left?
Definitely.
Well, what do you mean by more race? I mean, there's race mixing on both sides, but I don't know if there's more on one side or the other.
I don't know if there is, but what's interesting is that all these people that are called the side that's called so racist, a lot of their major figures, Gavin, the Milo and Roger Stone, married to a black woman too. All these people have, are married or in love with somebody that's not their skin color or whatever. And even Trump himself, like they all say he hates immigrants. He's married to one. Like it's just, it's a level that I've, it's something because I bet, I mean, I don't know if it means anything, but it was one thing I just noticed. I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Now the other thing I've actually gotten in fights with people over Gavin because I was in a mass communications course about like 2 semesters ago, and someone in the class was doing a paper on Vice, and I'm like, oh well, if you're writing a paper on the history of Vice, you should, you obviously need to bring up the fact that Gavin was a co-founder, and the chick was like, well, I don't need to bring up Gavin because he's a racist, and besides, wasn't he a heroin addict at one point? And I'm like,
still the co-founder.
And I'm like, no, I don't think he was a heroin addict, per se. I don't even know if he was necessarily like addicted to any drugs. But I said none of that. I said even if he was a racist, which he's not, that doesn't negate the fact that he was still a co-founder of Vice magazine. So,
if he was a heroin addict, that would make sense with like half of what Vice was talking about. Because if you look at their old stuff, it was all like drug shit. That was actually when they were decent.
Yeah, they literally have a cover with like a close up of somebody's like tongue with an LSD tablet on it.
I mean, Gavin used to kind of be like, I wouldn't say like left, but he was like considered like more liberal, like back in the 90s. So,
well, he was the guy who invented hipsters. We have him to blame for that. But he's a very interesting guy because I don't know if he was always technically conservative, but he's definitely one now. But he's a very interesting guy. He's kind of a very unique guy, and I'd say just study him for that. I mean, you said a professor was telling you this, right?
No, a student in the class was telling me this. But
yeah, you should still look into him, especially talking about Vice, because they had a really bad breakup between Gavin and Vice, I heard. I don't even know what went down, but it sounded kind of ugly.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a little bit of it. I was actually interested in Gavin too, because I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm a total hipster, but like I kind of like to wear suits and ties and whatnot, kind of like that hipster Mad Men look. So I actually kind of discovered Gavin through that like a couple of years ago, and then when I found out that he was like more kind of like a cultural libertarian, like Gavin kind of defines himself as like a conservatarian, which is how I identify myself politically. So it's also interesting because I I like Tucker Carlson too.
Mm.
Tucker Carlson is another big influence. So, um, I know I'm kind of bouncing on here, but in terms of like doing the show, like what influenced you guys to start a show or a podcast? Um,
Oh
as a whole.
God, I I remember, at least for me, I always, when I got to Penn State, I saw this radio station. I was like, I want to do that. I don't know what's in me because I am, yes, I'm an advertising major, so I'm into college communications. So speaking, talking, writing, visuals, that's kind of all my thing. Even though I used to be a very shy person, ironically, and yet now I'm doing all these other things. But I pushed myself like debate teams and all kinds of other stuff to be more out there. I mean, I like, what was that, Alex?
The debate club.
Yeah, the one at Penn State's something else. But the one in high school is fine. But, I've always liked, multimedia or like TV, movies, radio, that sort of stuff, podcasts. And I always want to do the radio. And I thought, gee, it'd be cool to do like a politics show. Talk to my friends back. That'd be cool. And we originally had some other people on it. I think, Alex, you've been there from basically the start.
Yeah. As soon as you got your license and we started doing the actual show.
Yeah, and Dictator Phil came in later because I just met him last school year, but I'm glad he was excited to come on because he's like, oh, you have a radio show? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I want to come on. I was like, sure. And it's been awesome ever since because it's taken off big time with him on. But my influences, I guess you could say, I'll say in general, like, as Gavin said, you always kind of first point to like cultural people. Mike, in middle school, my big influence was Jim Morrison from The Doors.
Oh, fuck yeah. I love Jim Morrison.
Yes. Yeah, because I know we have similar music tastes, which is great.
Jim Morrison, by the way, if you listen to any of his speeches today, he would be considered like a conservative now,
yes.
too. It's fucking crazy.
Yes. So. And he was literally just kind of a guy that was, just wanted to say whatever the fuck he wanted to. Like, the stuff that just resonated with me was like when he would say and break on through, he'd say hi, and that wasn't allowed on the radio. And when he sang "Light My Fire" on the Ed Sullivan show, they told him, "Oh, you can't say higher. That's words not allowed." But he said it anyway. I like that because I always had a sort of rebellious, like free speechness in me. And look, the word "high" is like harmless today, but back in the '60s. Like, you can't say that because that's what the kids want to do, and it's bad. And, that was one of my first influences. And George Carlin was a huge influence on me for comedy and, looking at the world in a, provocative way. And also because I'm not a religious person at all. I'm technically an atheist. But more into politics, my biggest influence is Trump by far. The guy changed everything about my life. I looked at things totally differently. My career path's even kind of been pushed by Trump. My involvement in things has been pushed by Trump. The way I speak has been changed by Trump. And it also is also with Scott Adams. I don't know if anybody knows who he is. You know Scott Adams?
Yeah, I fucking knew who Scott Adams was before like a lot of people because I find Dilbert fucking hilarious. So
yeah, and I'd always seen the Dilbert comics, but I never knew of his name. But then once I saw his takes on Trump, I was like seeing a totally different world. And I've read his books, highly recommend. If you want to learn how to persuade, communicate, they're the best books out there. And he is by far the best when it comes to political analysis. And he totally changed how I view everything and got me into advertising a lot. But other than that, I'd say my major influence says were Milo and Gavin McInnes. Those two people. Milo is just a rock star to me. He's like if I was in the '60s, I've had Jim Morrison posters on my wall at the Doors. If I was a teenager now, which I guess I technically was, but not really when Milo's coming, but I would have Milo on my wall. That's the sort of figure he is to me as a cultural figure. And Gavin, of course, is more in my college years. I've kind of realized Gavin's like just so down to earth and gets shit. But Milo is just hilarious and smart and witty and trolly. Kind of turned me into a bit of a troll, not gonna lie. But those, I'll rattle them down real quick in case anybody missed them. But I'd say Jim Morrison, Scott Adams, George Carlin, Donald Trump, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Gavin McInnes. Top 5, I guess I named their influences on my life.
That's interesting, and that's for Sean. Phil, as as far as you go, what would you say your political influences are?
Um, I don't know if there's so much like politician or political influences.
Or
I
just
think
influences in
I
general?
think I loved I love stand up comedy. So I'm
Me
like
too.
my sin is dictated on stand up comedy, and I'm like I used to love one of my favorite people that I like to listen to is Anthony Cumia. Love the guy, and it's so funny.
Oh
Uh,
my God, you like Kumia?
yeah, yeah, he is so funny, and he's quick with it too. Like that, I appreciate stand up comics who are very quick. Like you ever see a stand up comic and you're like, oh, this dude's reading from a script. You know this dude's read from a script and he said it in 30 other cities before he came to mind. Like no, like Anthony Cumia, like he's been on the radio for so long, and like when he interacts with people, it's quick and it's funny. Like it's just like nothing like it. And um and of course he was one of the biggest Trump supporters when he first came onto the scene. He was huge. Like he was like, yeah, we're going to hell. We need this guy. Like, and
Yeah.
we can't. We there's no fucking way we're doing 4 years of Hillary Clinton. And
No.
I'm like, all right, I can get behind that. And then and I think a lot of other people that influence me are like people that rebel against what everybody else is going toward, you know? Like Milo. The one of the things I like about Milo is he rebels against what everybody thinks he should be good because he's a gay Jew who's married to a black guy, right? You would think you look at him and you think, oh, he's a Democrat. Oh no, surprise! He's actually on the other end, and I love it, and I love
Yeah.
how he's quick. I love and I also love how people engage people too. That's another reason why I like Milo. I used to like Ben. Ben kind of wore off on me.
I have an interesting story about Ben that I'll tell you guys
Yeah.
in a
Ooh.
sec.
Okay.
So,
But yeah, those are the qualities that I look for in people that I like, look up to. I like people who go where other people don't want to go, and then who are quick to challenge everybody else that is comfortable or does the status quo. I can't stand people that just follow the status quo because Rachel Maddow told them so. Like, no, you got to think for yourself, dude.
well, Rachel Maddow is kind of a cunt. Too. Yeah,
Kind of,
I,
kind
I,
of.
I fucking said the C word when it comes to Rachel Maddow. It's true. So, Alex, I'll pose the same question to you. Any influences in terms of like culture, or basically how you got involved or anything
Well,
like that?
well, I would say probably what got me in the conservative movement. There's this website called Pennsylvania Firearm Owners Association. That kind of got me into guns, and guns kind of led me down to conservatism. But like apart from like once that kind of happened, once I was in high school, I started to go on to 4chan, and well, 8chan didn't exist back then. I used to go there a lot, and that's where I spent a lot of my time. So I remember I discovered there was a thread on the board of the video game board. It was for this weird like browser game called a Block. And it was like one of those games where you like simulate a nation on the computer with like a bunch of other people.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And then they had then that led me to another game called Politics and More. And I had like two accounts on there. The first one was a troll, and I got banned. And then went back. But like while I was kind of doing that, like I found this YouTuber called what was it? He was an internet aristocrat at the time. He became Mr. Medicare now. I think he took his stuff off of YouTube recently because he got like false flagged. But
Uh, oh yeah.
he's probably like my greatest influence of all of them. Like I just love because he says it as it is, and he pretty much started Gamergate. Like people say Monday Matt started that, which he really didn't. Like it was Jim who reported on it. That's my reason
Also,
anyone
Milo, who broke that story too.
he broke that he was the first mainstream person to break it, but like Jim's always had like a big following on YouTube, and it started like Gamergate started on like 4chan and stuff, and Jim brought it up, and eventually it started spreading, and then Milo got a hold of it, and he broke it on the he broke it to the masses via Breitbart, and that's like the whole reason I even like started watching like and listening to Breitbart is because of like Jim and Gamergate. Like that was probably like one of the biggest. That whole movement was a very big influence on me. But other than that, like actual like political leaders, I would probably say Ian Smith, the Prime Minister of Rhodesia. I thought he was a no, I think he was a very interesting character if you look at him. He knew what was going to happen if they if they had majority rule over there, and say what you will, he just tried to go and give the highest quality of life to that country as possible. And he's been demonized since then, but Mugabe just died the other day, so something good came of that.
Well, that's interesting. So, as far as who my influence are for you guys, and I think I talked about this a little bit on Versa, but I didn't go or on Real News. But I don't think I went into full detail. So I'm kind of like an old school. I kind of got involved when I was like back in like 8th grade, kind of like back when the Tea Party movement was a thing.
Oh, yeah, she talked about Andrew Breitbart.
So yeah. So Rush Limbaugh, like before I even really knew what politics was, when I was like a really, like young kid, like I was probably like 8 or 9, like my mom would always have like Rush Limbaugh in the car. And he was such I could just tell that like he had such an energy behind what he did on the radio that I was like, that's what I want to do. So then when like podcasting came around, I kind of started like my own thing. And then like back in 2008. But then when Andrew Breitbart came along during like the Tea Party wave and started talking like how conservatives needed to get like online and blogging and whatnot, like I was like, yes, this guy like realized what we need to do. So I followed him for really up until he died. And then I actually, as a result of my admiration for Breitbart, I actually reached out to Ben Shapiro, who at the time was still one of the editors at Breitbart, and just emailed him at that email, and asked him if he wanted to be on my old radio show. And surprisingly, he said yes. And so one of probably my most famous video on my old YouTube channel is probably the one where I interview Ben Shapiro. And yeah, I don't really know what happened to Ben. He changed between Breitbart and the Daily Wire. That's all I will say. I think if Andrew were alive, Andrew would have certainly been a Trump supporter. Or let me put it this way: if Andrew were alive, we would have never gotten a second term of Obama to begin with. So, but yeah, and then so Rush Limbaugh and then Breitbart, and then in terms of like the newer people, I would say Gavin, and and then just like in terms of podcasting too, like Joe Rogan and a little bit of Bill Burr, to be honest. So
yeah, one more influencer I actually forgot to mention was Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear and the Grand Tour.
Oh, I
'Cause
fucking love Jeremy Clarkson.
yeah, see, this is one thing I've noticed. We all have very similar influencers, even if they're different names. We'll all know them, we'll love them, and they're all funny. That's the other thing. They're all funny, and they're almost
De-
all cultural.
yeah, well, Dennis Miller too is a huge influence
Mm.
of mine, especially early Dennis Miller from like the 1980s when he was on SNL. I mean, he's still good, although he's like an older baby boomer, but he's still pretty good.
I remember when you used to go on O'Reilly. That's when I first learned about him, actually.
Yeah, I've always liked Dennis. I could never stand Bill and just
Mm.
because, and it wasn't like Bill never like creeped me out or anything. Bill just kind of seemed like Bill always seemed like a weird uncle, who you would have to talk to at holidays or whatever. So
Well, apparently that's what got him kicked off of Fox News, right? Playing too much weird uncle.
Yeah. Well, like
uh,
in my early like elementary, middle school years, like I was watching a lot of like O'Reilly, Fox News, and Top Gear or MythBusters. Like that was my like childhood in a sense. Like when I was starting to get older, or we're kind of like getting out of childhood, you could say. But like Top Gear, for example, I mean, I think we've all seen the show. We all love it, but it's so unique. It's so like guy. It's such a guy thing. It's so, fun and funny that it stuck with me. Just, I don't know, there's something about it that's really special to me. Like it does influence my humor style a bit, or how I interact with people, how I talk, how I think. But even Jeremy
oh,
Clarkson's a guy that just doesn't give a shit. Like all these people I've named, they don't give a shit.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, Jeremy Clarkson is hilarious. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know that people say that the Grand Tour isn't as good as Top Gear, and it's it's not, but it's pretty damn good,
The
I
last
think.
two seasons were solid to me. I mean, the
I
first one was a little rough, getting their footing, trying new things. But like once they hit season two, it was like we're back in
Yeah.
shape.
The first season was like, and you have to remember that like Amazon compared to Netflix is newer at this. So like I think that concept for like Amazon was pretty new too. So they were just like
Mm,
trying it out at that point. So
yeah.
um I mean the other thing that I know that Sean and I have gotten into lots of conversations about is our musical
Oh yeah.
taste too. That was like a fucking revelation when I found out
Yeah.
that there was another person who knew King Crimson.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, like right now I have my little, I don't know if you were going to see this in the video, but I have my little Samurai Jack Aku here. But normally my profile picture is the King Crimson and the Core of the Crimson King album artwork. Because when I first learned about that was in, I think, end of middle school or early high school. Because my dad came across one of the songs by them. It was I Talk to the Wind.
I
And
I love I Talk to the Wind.
yeah, it's a beautiful song. It was really unique sounding. I thought, oh, that's different. And I remember my dad got the album because either he'd heard of it before and he rediscovered. I forget what happened, but he got the album and I put it in my computer. And I don't know if I even listened to it. I forget what happened, but like a while passed. I would keep seeing that album cover. I was like, that is such a unique cover. It's so cool and colorful and artistic. And I finally started listening to it. I was like, this is really good, actually. And then
That
yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that album cover is how I feel living in 2019 in clown world.
Yeah, it's
So
like, what the fuck? It's just such a cool image. It's very unique, and you never like see anything like it. And I listened to the full album, like, I started like playing. I was like, this is really good. And then I put headphones on, and like right before I was gonna go to bed, I remember I was listening to In the Dark. It just blew my mind. It's such a interesting piece of artwork.
the album Red and Indiscipline are other great albums by
Yeah, I need to give
people.
those more listen. I've for some reason didn't listen to them much. I've listened to Starless a bit because I know people like that song a lot.
Starless is okay. Larks and Tongue's Aspic or whatever it's called is really good.
Yeah.
That album. But yeah, we could talk about prog rock all night here and probably bore the other two.
Yeah.
So you and I might have to have a one-on-one about that one of these
Yeah, we
days.
could record a separate video about that because as you know, I'm a big fan of the 60s and 70s and 80s of all the music that came out then. Because to me, it's the best 3 decades we've ever got of music, other than the classical era way back in hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some good groups now, but far and few in between. So.
Yeah, one guy I will plug quickly is Rob Dugan. I don't know if you've heard of him. His music was used in The Matrix and Top Gear, actually. Yeah. Totally unique, totally cool. It's a modern guy, artist. He takes classical orchestral and mixes it with electronic beats and creates some really cool stuff. Very creative, very well done music. And nobody's heard of it, even though you kind of have.
I think I actually have heard his name.
Yeah, definitely check him out and buy his stuff. It's amazing.
Didn't he do the orchestral EDM thing for the new John Wick movie as well?
I don't think so. I didn't hear anything about that. You might be thinking of Tyler Bates. He did music for Samurai Jack, actually.
Yeah, I know that Tyler Bates did the John Wick soundtrack. So
yeah,
those movies those movies are fucking good too. I'm surprised that
those.
I'm surprised that John Wick is allowed to be made in 2019. I would think that John Wick is a little too based for, modern day sensibilities. But
people still love fantastical violence. That'll never change.
Well, and everyone still loves Keanu too. So,
and he's got and also his involvement in Cyberpunk 2077. Dude, his career is going on an amazing turnaround, I have to say.
Yeah, and he's what, 55, and he doesn't look like he's aged at all.
Yeah, he's. I think he's because people say he's a really nice guy. I think that's why he keeps getting gigs, is because he's such a good guy.
Hopefully, but anyway, well, any final remarks that you guys would like to make? Any final plugs?
Subscribe to Versa Media on YouTube. Just type in Versa Media on YouTube, and you can subscribe to us. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All the links will be there, and join our Discord server. And it's a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to come on the show, just ask us.
How many subs do you guys have on YouTube?
We are 1 away from breaking 100. So whoever subscribes tonight through this show will break that 100. You'll be a 100 subscriber.
Well, let's try and make it to like 110, guys. Or because you guys really deserve it, and I know that getting that first 100 is a bit of a struggle somewhat. So, believe me, I just surpassed 530. So.
Nice.
So yeah, and I'm trying to get up to 1,000. So, that's everyone's ultimate goal. So, and are you guys on iTunes yet, or any of those podcasting platforms?
We're on everything. We're on iTunes, Spotify. I think the only thing I'm on is technically SoundCloud because you got to pay, and I'm just like, sorry, we're poor. We're in the poor stage. But yeah, you can find us on literally anything. And, the best way to stay in contact is through that Discord server. And if you want to, I think we have an email too. You can email us at versanewsmedia@gmail.com. I think it is. Just haven't checked in a long time. But the best way is to DM us on Twitter at Versa News Media. And again, subscribe at Versa Media on YouTube. And you always talk to us on the Discord server.
Is the podcast at Versa Media too, or do you search like Real News and then?
It's under the Versa Media YouTube channel, but the show is called Real News. So it will say that in the title, but just Versa Media is the best way to find us because there's see, when I picked Real News, Nobody had picked that yet because I thought it's the opposite of fake news. It's real news. It's a good title, and it sums up who we are. But ever since I picked it, Trump uses it in his videos. Alex Jones has a show called it. So when you search real news, like it comes up with everything except us. So Versa Media is where you'll find us with that little Eye of Horus, the Egyptian eye.
Yep. Is that an I take it that's an Alan Parsons
Oh my
reference
God, I
too.
can't believe you picked up on that. Yes,
Yeah.
that
Yes, sir.
inspired me for that because I love Alan Parsons too. And I saw the album cover at the time I first found that album, and I was listening to them when I was thinking of the logo idea, and I was like, that's really cool look. Like I've always liked that eye, but it really resonated with me at that time. And oh my God. Somebody just commented. It says, "Fat Keck Boy." I'm the 100th subscriber. Thank you, Fat Keck Boy.
I just put that up on the screen. So we've actually had a lively chat here tonight.
Right. Oh, I didn't look at the comments. Oh shit, I was in the private chat the whole time.
So yeah, you can look at the comments and they're pretty interesting. So
fuck, I missed that. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at this now.
Yeah. But yeah, that did come from the Alan Parsons cover of "Eye in the Sky." You're the only person that's picked up on that. So congrats! Oh my God, it's awesome.
So yeah, this is like that scene in Step Brothers. Did we just become best brothers?
Yeah.
So.
May have.
Shout out to Gabriel Shervo.
Cool, yeah,
he's going off.
Oh yeah, we'll Gabe's regular. The entire chat is great. Here, let's see. We have OJ's White Bronco. We have future nobody who future nobody was making gay jokes earlier. So we have Irrational Times, and we have the Ellen Pell. We have the Ellen Pell Project too. And of course we usually have John Arcade who clips all of the Ellen stuff. So but anyway,
I assume we can go back and see these comments in the replay.
Oh yeah, you guys will be able to, and you guys will probably be like, what were these guys talking about? Well, we were talking about serious stuff.
Yeah, because we've never done a YouTube live stream. We hope to do that one day, probably once the radio gig ends, which is gonna after I graduate here at the end of this year. Then we'll probably be streaming live on YouTube and other platforms. But we haven't had an actual live commenting fee, which is pretty cool to have.
Then you guys can go fully uncensored, maybe, and
fuck yeah.
We've done a few uncensored ones before, but I mean, it's nice to have an actual radio. Like, to be honest, like for this, was it 6 months or how long were we without it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's been a few months that we, because we actually were lucky that I was here for the summer we got, but it's been a few months since we haven't had it, and it's like great to be back because I'll for the first hour play my classic rock, love playlist here, I'll play all that stuff and it gets me hyped up, and then we go into the show and we can get callers. Like we had Flat Earthers calling, which was the funniest shit ever.
You guys have had Flat Earthers?
Well, we had trolls, Flat Earthers, but we also had some that it was honestly hard to tell if they were trolling. I think some of them were legit, but it was funny. I mean, I'm going to miss this place, so I'm gone. I'm not going to lie. As much as I hate the censorship, I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
So, real quick, how do people have those comments that pop up over there? Did that super chat system?
No, I actually click on them. People can super chat me by going to streamlabs.com/Whitfield report. Link in the description below. So thank you for that. But no, the way that StreamYard sets up, I can trigger the comments if I want them. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Try
this one of these days. I like. I'll have to see how it get to pay for StreamYard.
You can, but you can and get extra features, but I'm on their free plan. So.
Yeah, look into maybe one of these days. This seems like a pretty good app.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, really, it's the only one that kind of does what it does now. That Hangouts, on YouTube is no longer a thing. So,
Yeah, because honestly, I found from my experience, the Discord tends to have the best audio quality. This one sounds like it's already pretty good, but I love YouTube for its massive audience. But God, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, when are we going to get banned? When are we going to join that club? Because it just feels like inevitable.
Oh yeah, and that's, I guess that can kind of be our final topic. That kind of going back to what we were talking about in the beginning. I I worry about like the same thing too with when I'm gonna get kicked off YouTube. And I'm not, and I'm not even that big, and I'm not even that edgy compared to some other people on the platform.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. I just see in the comments here. Future Nobody says Versameter of Jesuits. No, we're not. And then he says Versa Media, drinking beers and touch Penn State rears.
Well, someone over here doesn't like to drink beer, so.
Oh my God, do I have to admit that on air? Okay, yeah, it's funny because yes, there is a lot of from Jerry Sandusky rear touching at Penn State, especially in the showers. But
there were a couple comments once about Jerry Sandusky. Once you guys said you guys were from Penn State, so
yeah, that's our associations. Our three main. Okay, I guess you could almost make them two, but our three main associations, like going to Penn State, are Jerry Sandusky, partying and drinking, and the frat boy falling down the stairs and killing himself.
That kind of goes with partying and drinking, to be honest.
What was that?
That kind of goes with the pen. That kind of goes with partying and drinking.
I know that's what I think. It could be two. It could just be two. But the thing is, I'm at one of the biggest party schools, biggest drinking schools, and I've never drank alcohol in my life and never will.
Oh, you say that now. You'll grow old one day and be like,
no. I have my principles, man.
Yeah. Did you hear Jerry Sandusky? He's he actually got out of prison, right? And he's opened up a store on College Avenue. Yeah, it's called Sandusky's, and it's boys' underwear is half off.
Oh, somebody.
Oh God.
What was one of the flavors called, Alex, at the creamery at Penn State?
They used to have a flavor called Sandusky Blitz when I was like business. There was like peanut butter involved in it. Probably.
Oh! You never told me that.
I used to work there. I loved it. I used to work there. It was pretty fun. But,
hey, say what you will about Sandusky, but he's a good coach. He turned tight ends into wide receivers.
That's right. Look, hey, progress.
There was one meme that said, "Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone." With Sandusky's face. Oh fuck. Awful. Hell.
Well, if I was already banned from YouTube, I'm gonna get banned now for sure. So
what happens when you bring us on?
I wouldn't have it any other way. So,
at least no one made racist sound effects today.
Oh yeah.
Do I have to explain that one too?
Well, you guys were telling me that story off air before we got started, though.
Yes, I have to say it here too. If we have time, I'll say it.
Oh yeah, we have all the time in the world.
Okay. Yeah, what happened with that? So we were on the radio one night, and it was just a typical night, talking about the news and shit like that. And I forget what we were talking about, but Alex, I'm gonna blame this on you, Alex. No, I'm kidding. He mentioned, I think something about Buzz. No, we were talking about BuzzFeed laying off staffers. No, this wasn't your fault, Alex. This was mine. And maybe you did bring up like the diversity picture they took. There was a meme that people shared around because it was so ridiculous, where they took this picture of their staff, and it was all women, and they were mostly white, and there were some Asians in there. And the word that they just said in their tweet was just diversity, and that's what they sent out. But obviously there was no diversity because it was all the same. It was all women. They were all white or Asian. And so on air, I was like, oh, yeah. They had that diversity photo. And I then imitated them taking the picture. And I went, diversity, ka-chink. I was trying to make the sound of the camera shutter going ka-chink, like on your iPhone. And when I did that, I didn't really emphasize the ka enough. And no, I'm not going to repeat what I said because it already got me in trouble once. But it sounded.
This crowd fucking heard it, I guarantee you. So.
Yeah, they probably did. They're gonna call the radio and say, we should take this racist off air now. And it sounded like I said a racial slur against Asians, which anybody that knows me knows I would never say that in any way, in any derogatory way, and if any harm, I would never do it. I am not racist. I actually hate racists with a passion, and they hate me with a passion. So it was such a stupid, misunderstanding that I came into. It was like a fucking comedy skit. And the radio people called me down, and I understood where they were coming from because they were probably getting some hate from some people at the university or something, or were worried about their FCC license being revoked because the FCC is what fucking regulates the station. I totally understood where they were coming from, but God, I was like, oh, this is such a misunderstanding. It was so terrible. Just trying to make a sound effect. I mean, and plus, there's also a dump button on the radio. Anybody that's in radio will know that, shit can happen. And you can't say curse words or certain words. So they have a dump button, and you're broadcast on a 7-second delay. So when you hit that button, it can get rid of it, and you can act like nothing ever happened. If I had knowingly said that word, if I had the intent to say that word, I would have picked up on it, and my co-host would have picked up on it with no shit and run over to that button and hit it, and it would have gone away. But I didn't. I remember looking back to that episode. I was like, fuck, what are they getting me for? Because they emailed me saying I had to come down and talk to them. And I was like, shit, we did say something about trannies. Fuck, we also said this and that.
I thought it was me. I swear to God. Because I was...
It's your second time.
Yeah, no, because I was imitating a woke girl, and I was doing stupid shit. And I thought that I was the one. And I'm like, and then Sean told me, I'm like, you did what?
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. Because I kept thinking of everything that could have been in. It was like, I didn't even think this was it. I listened to it, our replay, twice. I'm like, what are they getting at? Was it? I'm just shocked. And we were kicked off air for, I think, was it 3 months or was it 30 days? I forget.
Pretty much the whole semester, I think.
Yeah, it was 3 months. We just started off. We had 2 shows in. We were kicked off for the whole semester. And I finally got back because I had to write this apology. And, I had to, make my way back on air. But, glad we did because, it did give us a lot more bigger opportunities. And in the end, we came out on top. We were the big winners at the end of the day. And look, we're here now talking to you, so we're definitely getting something out of it.
Well, and apparently you have I've been informed that you guys have now inspired a Discord server now too, called boys butts. So
we'll have to join it then.
So yeah, well, you bring up Jerry Sandusky, and that's what this crowd does.
So.
Penn State pride worldwide.
Yeah, it's that fucking Penn State alumni network, that fucking Penn State love.
Yep.
We always have a new fucking controversy every year. Let me tell you, we had Sandusky, then we had the frat boy that fell down the staircase and died, and then we had we had the outing club band because they said it was dangerous to go on outdoor hikes together. I'm not making this shit up. We had the Uber driver.
The Nazi leaks.
Oh yeah. We had these like Nazi packets that ran around, claiming these kids were Nazis. We had the fucking Uber driver over the summer that was at Penn State Beaver that was like picking chicks up and he was kidnapping them. And he was a professor at Penn State. That was an Uber driver. So I mean, there's always something new here. It's insane.
I'm specifically expecting that I'm going to see Dictator Phil in the news regarding Penn State for something. Like I feel out of all of you, Phil is going to be the one to be responsible for something.
Well, he's no longer he graduated already, as did I. So I don't know Penn State.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll show up. I'll show up from time to time. I'm bound to get in trouble. The minute I set foot up back on campus, yeah, I don't care. And the thing is, I'm the one of those guys. I don't care. I'll say whatever the hell's on my mind. I don't care what people think. So, guaranteed, the minute I set foot on campus or in a room where we're all supposed to be gaggling, I'm going to rub someone the wrong way. Guaranteed.
And see that's what I like about all of the other guys is you guys just speak your mind and really don't give a fuck. So.
Oh, I remember this. Phil had this fucking funny joke. When we were at one Turning Point meeting after the meeting, we were all talking about like going shooting or going to a gun range, and people are like, "Well, where's the local gun range? Like, where can we find one?" And fucking Phil just goes, "Well, I hear the college Democrats have meetings every Monday."
Oh shit! That was.
And obviously, it's a joke. We're not going to shoot up the college Dems meeting, nor would we. But oh my fucking god, it was so it just came everywhere.
Well, you guys speak for yourselves. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. At worst, I'll just run into their shins and then like pretend like I didn't see them. So
yeah,
I love seeing people triggered because that I am a little bit immature, and when I see somebody that's like triggered, it makes me want to like keep going. It makes me want to keep going even further. It offends you? Oh, let me rub that one a little bit harder.
I have to tell you that that the Trump victory election night montage, I still fucking watch that like every 3 weeks or so just because it's fucking great.
Oh, I know. I see it every now and often too. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is just the best thing ever. I love
seeing how Cenk Uyghur slowly. I love seeing that fat fuck slowly lose his shit as the results start pulling in. It's like, at first he's all comfortable, and then that fat fuck starts losing it.
Yeah. Well, I love to see him. I love how in the video he gets like progressively like more worried.
He gets more. He's like, "Oh no, guys, the votes are coming in Pennsylvania. Oh, it's not looking too good for Hillary." And it's just like he kept just like the dread, and he's like, "It's not looking good, guys." And like all these media figures were literally sad, and some were even crying when they found out he won. I was just so happy. I remember that night so well. Alex was with me for that night. It was one of the best fucking nights ever.
I did not. So I did not. So that entire day of the election day, I was kind of feeling down because like I was under the impression that we had like a good run, but like I was pretty sure that Hillary was gonna rig the damn thing and win. So I was kind of like. I was kind of I guess I'll watch for like half an hour, kind of see how it goes. As soon as like Trump started like pulling ahead, like you know, in I can't remember exactly, but like once the tide turns, I'm like, whoa, okay, this is getting interesting. And then I think once he took Pennsylvania, I was like, no way, he's gonna fucking do it. So, and
I think it was Pennsylvania was the one that put him that he actually won was with Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So
it's crazy for us because that's where we live. And at the time we were watching it from, I remember that night very well because I went into it thinking he has a really good chance. I think he'll win, but man, I was still fucking nervous. And then when I was in the car traveling to our little election watch party, I heard them say that he was ahead in Virginia. And even though he lost Virginia, the fact that he was even ahead for a good while was like, oh my God, this guy's going to fucking win. And then I just saw the states rolling in. It's almost like it was exactly as like how it should be. And then the bigger surprise for me was Michigan because I've been to Michigan many times. It's a rural place. It's pretty blue collar, middle class. By the way, everybody there is super nice. One of the most beautiful, best states to live in, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And as long as you avoid Detroit and don't get shot. But even Detroit's getting a little better. But I remember like when I was making a map like in high school, I thought he could win Michigan, but I'm not sure. Michigan, when he got Michigan, they went, he's got this. Like that was like, that's it. He's won. I knew it from there on out because that is such a huge win because it tends to go more blue than other states that are swing states do.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Michigan too. Actually, my grandparents live up in northern Michigan.
Oh, really? Where do they live?
Well, my grandmother, my grandfather passed last year, but my grandmother still lives in Pulaski, Michigan.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I mean,
my grandparents. I have my grandma left now, and she lives in Harper Woods outside of Detroit. I've been from Detroit all the way up to Cadillac to Munising to pretty much all parts of that state except Flint. But I
haven't been to Flint either.
Have you been up to Dearborn?
I don't think so, but I hear that's where a lot of Muslims are in Michigan. But
yeah.
I've also been in Traverse City. What was that, Alex?
You should host a gay pride parade over there.
Oh yeah. Oh, remember when Milo was gonna do that? He was gonna do a gay pride parade in a Muslim ghetto. I was like, dude, you're gonna get shot. That's like the one thing he actually couldn't do.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michigan is crazy. So.
Yeah. One thing that's weird though is like, I mean, I don't know what's like in Florida because I've only been to Florida once. But for some reason,
Florida's fucking weird too.
Yeah, that's why the Florida man's a meme. But like the East Coast is just like nobody's happy. But when you go to Michigan or in the Midwest, everybody's like super nice. They'll hold doors for you all the time. I'm like, when I'm out in PA, nobody does that to me. Like, I don't know. It's like everybody's just like nice over in the Midwest.
Well, hold on, where are you? And like, you go by Philly and PA. No shit, they're gonna be bolting those doors as you're in Philly. But like, you go to like York, like Southern York County, like not in the city. There's some good people over there.
Oh, there are plenty good people. But
is the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia like an accurate portrayal of Philly like at all?
I can't say because I've actually never watched the show, but I'll tell you that Philly, when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, we're going to the city, yay! But now that I'm older and I look at it a little more carefully, I dread going through that city. Lots of, like, you know what row homes are, where it's like these homes like right next to each other?
Oh, yeah.
Those used to be like where all the workers went. They were considered the nice thing to live in. I've always associated them with the shitty, disgusting rundown homes, and it's all a mess. There's graffiti everywhere. There's people on the streets everywhere, like giving you strange looks. It's a terrible sight. Like I get nervous driving through there. It's when you get into the center city, it looks nice and pretty and all that, and the art museum's cool and all that. But that's also where most of the crime technically happens. So it's a shithole. Honestly, even though Detroit, I used to when I was younger think was worse, I would much rather live near Detroit than Philly. I know it sounds crazy, but I would. I just would.
Is everyone still obsessed with like Rocky in Philly too?
Yeah, like when on the steps of the art museum, which is where you see the famous Rocky with his fist up in the air. They do have a statue there, and you'll see people mimicking it. I wouldn't say the city has an obsession with it, but it is definitely a part of the culture. Like that love thing is also part of it. But and the Liberty Bell, of course. But Philly, let me put it to you this way: every time you turn on your local news in my area, it's always there was a shooting in Southeast Philadelphia. There was a robbery in Philadelphia. Like every fucking night, there's like 5,000 new crimes in Philly. It's just all you hear about is crime, 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 crime. It's just pretty sad. Like I don't see that city turning around, honestly.
Yeah, Gabe in the chat goes, "Yo, Adrian, we got AIDS." So, yeah, that's Philly for you. So,
yeah, Philly is just pew pew pew. That's all the sounds you hear coming out of Philly.
yeah, yeah. So, well, adding it, right, guys. I've already tried to end this show once. So, again, is there anything that you guys want to plug or any topics?
No, just again, subscribe to Verse Media on YouTube, and you'll see all of our real news videos, or Milo interview, and all the other cool stuff we have.
Hopefully, it's over 100 subscribers now.
I will check the YouTube Studio app right now because that usually gives us the most up to date. So it hit 100. Woo! Thank you.
Has it hit over 100 yet?
Not yet. So if somebody unsubscribes, I'm going to be really pissed off because we'll go back to 99.
I know that Fat Kick Boy is subscribed, and he's good to usually stay subscribed. So
yeah, thank you, Fat Kick Boy.
So yeah, everyone subscribe to Versa Media, and again, look up their stuff on YouTube. So
and follow Dictator Phil on Twitter. Let's not forget that.
oh yeah, and are any of you guys on Twitter? Besides Dictator Phil,
more.
No, I really just use Twitter for all these clubs and Versa. Like, it's so weird. I use Twitter for nothing personal.
All right then. Well, I'll just everyone go subscribe to Dictator Phil, or go follow Dictator Phil on Twitter. And plus, I mean, I retweet him a lot too. So. But at any rate, gentlemen, thanks for coming on, and folks, thank you for listening. And I'll be back for the Thursday show on Thursday. So until then, good night, God bless, and God save this great nation. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for having us on. Good night.
Thanks. See ya.
Good night, guys.
Hey there, folks. If you've made it this far to the end of the podcast, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to the show. You are the ones that make it possible for me to make an income from podcasting, and I greatly appreciate that just by listening to our show. You are helping us gain ad revenue. However, if you would really like to help support the show, I encourage you to please donate to the podcast and become a supporter of the show. You can head over to anchor.fm/Whitfield Report and click the support this podcast button and choose the amount that suits you to support the show. Or you can click the link in the show notes and it will directly take you to that page. If you can support the podcast,
I really, really appreciate that. Anything that you can do to help out is greatly appreciated. Even if you can't afford to help financially support the podcast, I encourage you to please go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, and please leave this podcast a positive 5-star review. That really helps us out here at the Whitfield Report. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next episode.